to ATV's new talk show, TigerClash. I'm your moderator, Jake Stoope. Each month, we are bringing in two of your fellow students to debate a certain topic. In today's episode, the topic of the debate is who is the greatest basketball player of all time, LeBron James or Michael Jordan. Joining me today in this debate are Brent Lyons and Walker Funk. Brent Lyons believes Michael Jordan is the GOAT. Walker believes LeBron James is the GOAT. So we'll start with you, Brent. What is your main argument or your main take on why Michael Jordan is the best of all time?
I mean, we'll get into why Michael Jordan is the GOAT over LeBron James, so I don't think I really need to dive into it right now besides saying Michael Jordan is the GOAT.
Okay. So his main argument is just saying that he's the GOAT. What would you say?
My main argument is that the GOAT should be defined as the best basketball player of all time. Not the greatest winner, not the best defender, not the best scorer, but the greatest player. And statistically, LeBron James is that.
Mm-hmm. So do you want to comment on like stats or just like competitive play? What would you say Michael Jordan kind of edged LeBron in stat-wise? Or what makes him the best player in that way?
Well, I mean, stat-wise, LeBron James obviously has way more accolades stat-wise than Michael Jordan does, maybe kind of because he has played in the league longer, he started earlier, many different aspects. He's had a longer, more, I don't want to say prosperous career, but he's had a longer year with higher altitude levels than LeBron probably did, than Michael Jordan probably did. But I feel like when you think about stats, it's the regular season is one thing. That's where you accumulate all your points that go towards being the third best scorer ever in NBA history, which he passed Michael Jordan quite a while ago in that. But I feel like if you're looking at stats as a whole, you have to look at stats in the playoffs, which if you look at stats in the playoffs, most importantly, the finals, Michael Jordan has done well and beyond in the finals than I believe LeBron James has. So.
Okay. So he kind of mentioned in his little argument about how LeBron has had more accolades because he's had more time in the league. How would you combat that and say that LeBron James, that's one reason he is the GOAT?
Well, when it comes to longevity, LeBron has been in the league longer, which you could say, I mean, Michael Jordan quit for 2 years in his career. He came back on later, didn't play as well with the Wizards. I mean, LeBron has been, people have said that he hasn't gone out of his prime yet. And he's been in the league for, what, his 18th season? 19th?
19th, I think.
19th season. And he talked about playoff stats, how LeBron hasn't played as well in the playoffs, but I have playoff stats right here. And in the playoffs, LeBron leads in rebounds, shooting percentage, assists, blocks. Oh. Mm-hmm. He's only losing in points by, I think, less than 4 points. And the three-point percentage is, decimal difference.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, if we're talking stats, which we are currently, in blocks, they're actually the same. They both average just under a block in the finals, or if we're talking playoffs in general, not just the finals, overall in their entire career. And Michael Jordan does average around 6 more points in the playoffs than LeBron James does. But, in the end, at the end of the day, 6 points doesn't seem like a lot, but LeBron James has lost a lot of finals to 6 points or less. So
that's a fair point. But when you come to finals comparisons, who did they play in the finals?
I mean, Michael Jordan's first final, he played against who do you think is the best point guard of all time? Just wondering.
It just depends on what do you define as the best point guard? Like shooting, rebounding? I mean, the best pure point guard in my opinion is John Stockton.
John Stockton? All right, fair enough. Well, I would say Magic Johnson is up there pretty high. 1, 2, 3, you can make any comparison.
Yeah.
He beat prime, really close leaving prime, Magic Johnson in his first finals ever, which he did play in his first finals at age 27, but also coming into the league, you usually would spend more time in college compared to when LeBron James was coming in. It was more the time when people would come out of high school to come play. So he came into the league at 18. Michael Jordan came in at 21. LeBron's first finals was age 22 compared to Michael Jordan at age 27, but still beating a prime Magic Johnson 4-1 in his first finals ever while averaging 32 points is still pretty impressive.
I mean, don't get me wrong, Jordan is a great player, but just how many times did he not make the finals?
How many times did he not make the finals?
I think, well, you just said he didn't make it. He got into the league when he was 22, going on 23. All those seasons till he was 27, he didn't make the finals. He lost first round every year. I don't think he made the playoffs one of the years. LeBron's made the playoffs pretty sure every year of his career and only has one first round exit.
And you talk about like his teammates too, because LeBron did that with what some would say not the
Nothing.
best teammates, but Michael Jordan, on the other hand, had some good teammates. What would you say on that side of it?
Well, I mean, talking about teammates, LeBron and Michael Jordan have had incredible teammates. So you can't make the case that at any point in their career, they've all had the opportunity to play with great players, no matter when it was. Like you get past the huge names like Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman. Everyone has played with good players. LeBron and MJ have both played with incredible all-time players on any of the teams they played for. I feel like you're speaking towards the first Cavaliers run when he got thropped by who was it? Was it the Spurs?
The Spurs.
In 2007 when he didn't. You're right. He didn't really have anybody. But I feel like you could say the same thing about how the Cavs made it to the finals in 2007 and compare it to how the Thunder made it to the finals in 2012. The competition level was not at its peak for 2007 in the Eastern Conference as it was for 2012 in the West. The Thunder were really good. It was also a holdout season. Not everybody was at their peak basketball, so sometimes teams slip through the cracks. I feel like there was a potential that the Cavs slipped through the cracks and made it to the finals that year, and then they just got derailed by, obviously, Tim Duncan and the Spurs.
When you're bringing up teammates in the play, LeBron has gone against. It's a 4-to-1 difference for every one All-Star that Jordan has played in the finals. LeBron has had to play 4, and then coming to that, I mean that's a lot different. Like because you talk about finals losses and all that stuff. If LeBron's playing 3 more Hall of Famers in the finals than MJ, then can you blame him for those finals losses?
Well, you did not say Hall of Famers. You said All-Stars. Sometimes All-Stars are there for a season, but like Jeff Teague, he's made an All-Star game before, but he is by no means a Hall of Famer. He will never be a Hall of Famer. It doesn't matter how good he is. Kyle Korver is not a Hall of Famer, but he is still a great player who has made the All-Star game. So Hall of Famers-wise, Michael Jordan has played incredible players, so has LeBron, but comparing All-Stars to Hall of Famers is 2 completely different things.
Okay, let's compare their teams then. When MJ left for 2 years, what happened to the Bulls versus when every team LeBron has left, what happened to him?
I believe the Bulls still made the Western Conference Finals one of the years that Michael Jordan was gone. So
I'm pretty sure it was both of the years.
Yeah.
The Bulls still made the Western
Bulls lost to the Magic, I think, in the quarterfinals.
And then they made it to the Western Conference Finals one year.
Yeah.
So they were still a very good team.
Mm-hmm.
When LeBron left the Cavaliers the first time, they fell off the face of the earth. When he went to the Heat, when he left the Heat, they weren't nearly as good as they were.
Mm-hmm.
When he went to the Cavaliers the second time, they fell off the face of the earth again.
Okay, but you have to think about when LeBron James left the Cavs the first time, of course, because if I'm making my point, I said that they slipped through the cracks the first year. So, of course, they're going to be bad when he left. When he left the Heat, Chris Bosh was struggling anyway with his blood clots, so he wasn't really playing at that point. You're leaving Dwayne Wade there. Dwayne Wade wasn't going to leave at that point. They did not fall off the face of the earth. They got worse. They were not nearly as bad as the Cavaliers when he left them. When he left the Cavaliers the second time, he left a washed-up Kevin Love, and he left a Kyrie Irving who was leaving to go to Boston anyway.
Yeah.
So who had already left to go to Boston, he stayed another year. So there's you saying them leaving and falling off the face of the earth. It took more than just what they left. It took other teammates leaving for them to fall.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to be taking a quick break. We will be getting into this discussion more when we come back.
When I first saw a turtle, my heart was full. Now I'm anything but lonely.
We have this deep connection, this heart connection.
He just wants to be close to you and part of your life.
Every day with Turtle is a perfect day.
When I'm holding her, it makes me feel calmer.
I think everything he does shows how much he loves us.
When we adopt a shelter pet,
We discover
they're a little bit of a lot of things.
But they're all pure,
Pure love.
love.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Welcome back to the show. We're here with Brent Lyons and Walker Funk. And Walker Funk, you can kind of start us off on this next segment of the show. Comment on what Brent just said and just what are your thoughts in this debate?
You're talking about how he left teams that were already on the down. So what has LeBron's impact on his team been versus Jordan's? Because LeBron, wherever he goes, he makes every player on the court better. He can play all the positions, so he can play where he needs to make everybody better. He can do everything on the floor. Well, I don't think MJ made his players better. He just had the surrounding cast that he needed. He didn't make the players on the court better like LeBron does.
Well, I mean, you say he didn't make players on the court better. I mean, obviously, team as the whole has to be pretty decently good as a team in order to win a championship, because no player wins a championship by himself. So I would never say that Michael Jordan or anybody wins a championship by yourself, because you can't go out there and play 1v5. You're going to lose. You have to have teammates with you in order to have a shot in any game that you play. So I feel like when you say how you said LeBron and repeat what you were asking me.
LeBron has made his teammates better when he plays with them versus Jordan just having the teammates that he needs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, yes, he makes teammates better. That's what great players do. We are debating MJ and LeBron because they are regarded as the two greatest players of all time. If they weren't, then we would be debating other people. I feel like great players make everybody around them better. So both of them in some way make other people better. I feel like when you think of, you always find a way, you always make points based off where people stumble most, then you go to where they do well. Stumbling would be when LeBron made promises that when he came to the Lakers the first year, it was time to turn on playoff mode. Playoff mode didn't end so well. Playoff mode ended up getting booted by the Brooklyn Nets and D'Angelo Russell from the playoffs that year. He had a down team, not a bad team, not the worst team he's ever played for. Didn't have the best team he's ever played for. Said he was going to do something, nothing happened. When MJ makes promises, he's pretty much 100% keeping those. He had, I forget the name of the head coach. He had his second head coach for the Bulls, first game in the league for the head coach, and they were down in the fourth quarter. He's like, I'm not letting you lose your first game. They didn't lose the game. He went on to drop 40-something, and they won. Every time he was like, we're not losing, they didn't lose. Whenever he was sick and they needed a game, flu game, he played. Like all these other players like LeBron, when he needs to rest, he rests. Like they sit out now for resting because load management and whatever you want to do. Michael Jordan didn't use load management. Michael Jordan played every game that he possibly could, and even when he was injured, he was still playing basketball. We talked about earlier how, off air, how when Michael Jordan went back to school when he was injured, but he wasn't supposed to play basketball. He was running 5v5s while he was back at school, unknown to the Bulls, because he was still playing basketball when he wasn't allowed to play. Michael Jordan did not take off days for load management. Michael Jordan was on the floor every time he could. So I feel like that also plays into making people better, because you know how much he is dedicated to his team even when he can't be there, as of LeBron maybe taking load management even if he could play if he wanted to.
And I'll just speak on that. As you're talking about like injuries and playing through adversity, that takes a lot of your mindset. That's a mindset that you have to have. Guys like Kobe, guys like MJ, guys maybe like LeBron, which is what I'm going to get into. Talk about your player's mentality when he attacks the game, when he plays the game, maybe when he's injured. What does he do? What is his mentality when he plays the game?
Well, LeBron's always been on the court his entire career. I think the most games he's ever missed is around 20, except for the years he's been injured, which is 1 year, which is the 2020 season. I think the most he's missed besides that is right here. It says he missed less than 20 games, which was the most he's missed all his career, which means he's always there to play for his team. He's playing in a different era than Jordan, so there are a little bit different aspects going on, which is why, like, era to era, it's hard to compare certain things about certain players. You can't compare the toughness aspect of it because people always bring up the bad boy Pistons. Jordan having to go through them. I mean, you really don't know how Jordan would have played, or how LeBron would have played against the bad boy Pistons. I mean, he could have absolutely slaughtered them because you know he's physically just. People say he's the greatest athlete of all time, which is just a whole different debate, but it's a possibility. So, I mean, when it comes to his mindset versus game, I think he's always there for his team. He's always ready to play. I mean, Brent talked about the playoff mode activated thing, that mindset. That was the first season he's ever been hurt. He didn't know how to, I guess we don't really know if he knew how to play after that or what would happen. It was just 17th season when he got hurt. Takes a toll on somebody's mind and body, and he's only missed less than 20 games a season till his 17th season. That's a lot of playing.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like if you're talking about mentality, his is second to one behind Kobe Bryant. I feel like he had the greatest mentality of all time, Mamba mentality. But I feel like Michael Jordan's mentality when it was the approach to the game was really top tier alongside Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant got his inspiration from Michael Jordan, which is saying something considering we say Mamba mentality as if it is the greatest mentality to have. I feel like Michael Jordan came in and he said he was going to do something and he did it. He never said he wasn't going to do. He never said he was going to do something and didn't get it done. He came into the league. People asked him, like people in the NBA thought he was too small at first because hand checking, all these things were a thing. It was a way more physical game than it was now. Every star that you asked when he came into the league said he's overhyped. He needs to learn his place. I don't think that he's as great as people say he is. But he said in his interview after draft night, he wanted to be the greatest of all time. He didn't say who he wanted to be greater than. He said he wanted to be the greatest of all time. And then he, at least from that time until LeBron came, and now we're debating this now, he was the greatest of all time. And that was recognized afterwards by all the All-Stars, Hall of Famers in the NBA at the time. Like even Magic Johnson, all these people he was playing, said that he was the greatest of all time, even in the game. Like they were still playing against him, and they said, like Magic Johnson after they lost him, he said, I would not want to lose to anybody else other than Michael Jordan. Because they said he's a great competitor and his mentality is incredible and second to none at the time. And I feel like if you have other players, other future Hall of Famers saying that to you about your mentality and about the way you play the game, especially in a time with, like you said, injuries and stuff, LeBron hasn't had many, but LeBron, to the point about the bad boy Pistons and things like that, LeBron did not go through the physicality that Michael Jordan went through, and he still has suffered those injuries. Michael Jordan did not get injured a lot. We know that because he'd play through the flu, he'd play through any injury that he basically had. If he was not forced to sit by the ownership, he would play. So I feel like if you're saying how LeBron could have destroyed the Pistons, you're right, but he also could have been injured way more than he was, and because of how tough the league was then, struggled a little more than he could. It goes both ways.
Well, we seem to just be like, you can't argue era questions because you really don't know the answer. So I don't think we can add that into the argument of the greatest player of all time. You cannot bring up the era debate in this conversation. It just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because we don't know how MJ would play against the All-Stars in this era. We don't know how LeBron would play against the people of that era.
Very true. And we're going to take another short break. When we come back, Savannah Worley will be interviewing other students discussing their opinions on who is the greatest basketball player of all time. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back. Senior Savannah Worley went around Arlington to grab the opinions of some fellow Tigers on who is the greatest basketball player of all time. Let's see what they have to say.
I'm Savannah Worley, and today I talked to a couple of students about the heated topic of Michael Jordan and LeBron James. This is a very controversial topic, so I got a lot of mixed answers about who's the best NBA player.
Michael Jordan or LeBron James?
I got LeBron James.
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan, definitively.
LeBron James.
I think LeBron James.
Michael Jordan.
Definitely Michael Jordan.
I said Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan.
LeBron James.
LeBron James.
Why?
Because LeBron can do everything Michael can do, but he can do it better. He score better, he finish better, he shoot better, he pass better, he a better leader, he got more points, more steals, more blocks, more rebounds, so he better.
Because LeBron James is faster, He bigger, he's stronger, and he's smarter than the bald-head dude.
He the GOAT.
And?
He's just the GOAT.
Well, you know, there's a huge numerical problem when you take a look at it. Michael Jordan accomplished just so much more. Jordan, obviously, you know, the 2 3-peats, 6-0 in the finals. He's one of 2 guards in NBA history to win Defensive Player of the Year. LeBron has never won that as a forward because Michael Jordan played defense full time. LeBron simply did not do that. And Jordan has just been, or he was rather, the definition of greatness.
He can get triple doubles. That's all he does. He does everything on the court. When it comes to LeBron James, LeBron can dish out the ball. He can rebound. He can do everything for his teammates. He just had 11 assists last year. He doesn't do that. He just added that to his game. So I think LeBron is just getting better and better.
He got more points, better scorer in the paint, better rebounder, better stealer, better defender, better shooter.
Just because, like, each of them at the peak of their performance, like LeBron James is just a little better than him.
Because Michael Jordan is actually a very tough player. LeBron is like the flop, and then he gets hurt all the time, and he gets sick and cries and kind of a baby. So I'm going to go with Michael Jordan.
Well, the only reason LeBron James is who he is today is because he looked up to Michael Jordan.
He's successful in, like, different aspects. Like, he's rich in shoes, like, because the shoes he got, then he's rich off of basketball. And I like his game, like, when people tried to say something was wrong, he turned around and proved them wrong, and I liked that about him.
Because he's a classic and he's better than everybody.
Thank you, Savannah. Some interesting takes there from the students. Now for the last little 8-minute segment, I want to talk to Walker. What is your opinion on coaching? How does that affect the GOAT debate?
Well, when it comes to coaching, LeBron's never had a high-level coach, or people say high-level coach. He's created coach to become. He has turned coaches into high-level coaches by being on their team and helping, and pretty much helping coach them almost. While Michael Jordan had Phil Jackson.
Actually, you say Phil Jackson, which is funny because Phil Jackson actually was not a high-level coach coming into coaching the Bulls. Phil Jackson actually coached his first NBA team with the Bulls after he spent 2 years learning behind the head coach of the current Bulls coach at the time, who then Jerry Krause hired 2 years later to become the head coach of the Bulls. He actually was coaching a minor league team, and I might be wrong, I think it was Canada or something like that, but he was not coaching an NBA team until he coached the Bulls, and Michael Jordan was actually his first experience as a head coach in the NBA.
But Phil Jackson is known as one of the greatest coaches of all time.
Because of Michael Jordan.
You could say that, or you could say that Michael Jordan's one of the greatest players because of Phil Jackson. If they both, LeBron has gone to that coach and made them better. Jordan and Phil Jackson were together. One didn't make the other better necessarily. They made each other better.
Well,
LeBron has always made the other better.
Well, if you're saying how LeBron makes coaches great, then Michael Jordan makes coaches even better, because you would not be saying Phil Jackson is the greatest coach of all time if Michael Jordan wasn't there, because to your point, Phil Jackson still coached the Bulls when they didn't make the finals. He was still the head coach. Michael Jordan wasn't there. They didn't make the finals. If Phil Jackson's such a great coach, then why weren't they in the finals winning still? Michael Jordan was there with Phil Jackson. They made the finals. And they won. So Michael Jordan making coaches better and LeBron making coaches better, I feel like every coach that Michael Jordan has coached for has had an experience with winning, maybe not winning the finals, but an experience with winning. And if you think about it, besides Phil Jackson then getting signed to the Lakers, coaching a great Lakers team, that's what happens when you coach a great team, you get credit. So after coaching the great Bulls team, he went to another good Lakers team. But the other coaches that he's coached, after he was gone, they may have got good coaching jobs, but where did it go? Because Michael Jordan was winning with whatever coach he had. So,
yeah, you can't say Michael Jordan was winning with whatever coach he had because he was always with Phil Jackson. And also, you said when Jordan left, or when he was gone for those 2 years, they didn't make the finals. But when LeBron left those other coaches, some of them didn't make the playoffs. Some of them didn't get through the first round of playoffs.
Well, almost every coach, or a good handful of the coaches that LeBron James has had in the past, have gotten fired or left before LeBron James left, which eventually led to him leaving the team. Like with Tyronn Lue, he left before LeBron left. Like, he got fired before LeBron James left. He went to a different team. LeBron James still played for them. Didn't work out. He left. He loved Tyronn Lue when he played with him. He thought he was a good coach. But then when Tyronn Lue left, there seemed to be a problem getting the players together on the team, which I feel like says a lot considering we're talking about LeBron James making coaches great, the struggle that the Cavs had after Tyronn Lue left, winning games at first again and getting the locker room united. Because if you remember, there was a great issue with Kevin Love during that time after Tyronn Lue left.
You could also blame that on the Cavaliers' general management, though. They made mistakes. LeBron didn't believe that Tyronn Lue should be gone, and you could say that LeBron didn't do anything wrong in that scenario.
Well, I mean, if you want to talk about GMs and you want to talk about the smartest GM, but one of the worst GMs ever,
Jerry Krause.
You could say Jerry Krause. Jerry Krause had one of the worst attitudes as a GM you could ever have in your life. He had one of the greatest players of all time, one of the second greatest player, the greatest second player of all time on his team, and for some reason you're ending it. For some reason you're not happy with what's going on, so you're tearing it all apart. For some reason you're not happy with what's going on, so you make accusations about other people saying that you're going to get rid of them, they're not good enough, so you get rid of them. So if you talk about GMs and working through adversity with that, you second to none with the adversity with Jerry Krause, and that's just getting started on Michael Jordan's player dealing with.
Okay, so let's tone this down. We've talked about a lot of things. We've talked about coaching, we've talked about stats, we've talked about mentality, talked about dominance on the floor. What is the most important aspect of being the greatest of all time? If you had to pick one thing and compare it to the other person, what would it be? Anyone can go.
Well, I mean, I feel like you can try to narrow it down to one thing, but at the end of the day, you won't. Because if you say points, then someone's going to say, well, then this person has more rebounds. You say that about rebounds, then you go down to assists, steals, blocks. It gets into everything. Especially with comparing eras, it's hard to really hone in on who is the greatest player of all time when you're comparing people that never took the court at the same time. So no matter what you're trying to say, if you say mentality, then you could be like, oh, LeBron James did this, Michael Jordan did that. It just keeps going back and forth. I feel like it has to come down to as a whole. You have to really hone in. I feel like it's hard to, I feel like you can't name one thing that would make one person greater than the other because it goes past that. If it just took one stat to make Michael Jordan the greatest player of all time, I just picked the best stat that he had. If it was just LeBron James needed one stat, then he would pick the best stat from LeBron James. It goes deeper than that, and that's what makes the GOAT conversation for any sport so special is because if the GOAT was defined by one stat, then there wouldn't be this conversation now, which is what makes basketball so special. It's the conversation and the debates that you can have with other people. I feel like if it was just one stat, you wouldn't be able to have that. It goes way past it.
When it comes to having one stat that defines everything, I agree with Brent. You can't do that. But when it comes to comparing them, he said like the mentality thing, you can say one about Jordan, you can say one about LeBron. So you can't really, that cancels out almost. A lot of other things cancels out. I feel like their finals appearances versus the 6-0 kind of cancels out. Their team success, they both have had an extreme amount of success in the playoffs and stuff like that. Dominance on the court. MJ was very dominant in his era. LeBron has been the most dominant player of his era, undoubtedly. But statistics, LeBron is beating Jordan. So overall, I feel like the statistic just pushes you towards LeBron overall. After everything, LeBron is better than Jordan.
You say you said undoubtedly the best player of his era, but when you think about it, when Michael Jordan was the greatest player in his era, nobody questioned it at all. You have had a handful of players during LeBron's time that people have said could be better than him at this point in time. Like when Michael Jordan was in the NBA, they had to take MVPs away from him because they felt bad that he was winning so many MVPs. They felt bad that he was dominating the stat category so much that they had to give it to other people. Charles Barkley would not have an MVP if the league didn't feel bad for everybody else.
You could say the same thing about Steve Nash for LeBron.
Okay, but at the same
they gave Nash 2 MVPs, which almost everybody undoubtedly thinks should both be LeBron's.
Okay, but at the same time, if we're talking about being the greatest player of your era, Steph Curry for a couple years was considered the best player in the era. Dwight Howard at one point was being compared as the best player in the era. Kevin Durant, Giannis, Jokic, not very much Jokic, but Kevin Durant, Giannis, Steph, Dwight Howard, all these people have been said to be better than LeBron James at some point in their career.
Most of the players you just listed were only considered good players for a very short amount of time. I'm saying dominant over his era. His era has been 2001 when he got in the league until now, and he has dominated the entire time.
You say
for sure.
You say short players for a good amount of time, but all 4 of the players I just said are easy Hall of Famers, so I don't get where you say short amount of time, but it's
Yeah. Well, in the end, there's really no way to determine who is the greatest basketball player of all time, as we talked about different eras. But we want to thank you for watching the first episode of Tiger Clash. Thank you to Brent and Walker for being our guests on the show. Be sure to tune in next month where we have a new topic and new guests. Thanks for watching, everybody.